Birdie Brand's all-natural bug deterrent is the best in the game of golf. It keeps the bugs away while giving you a bit of focus for those tight moments as the match comes to a close. Tour-tested, tour-approved, the 1-ounce bottle fits in any golf bag or travel case. When the match is on the line and your focus and comfort are things you don't want to be thinking about out there on the course, use Birdie Brands to make sure that doesn't happen to you. Birdie Brands, game on, bugs gone. Get yours at birdiebrands.com today.
This salsa got its start in a tiny kitchen in Alabama, but it's big on flavor at family gatherings, big or small. Make sure you have Uncle Keith's in time for your next big event. You can find Uncle Keith's in a grocery store near you in the southeastern U.S. or go to the website, unclekeithsredsauce.com, and order yours today. Call it red sauce, call it salsa, but when you have Uncle Keith's, you can definitely call it a party. Hello and welcome to My Side of the Bag. Drew Hinesley, Scotty Worldwide. This is our first 9. Our show sponsored by Birdie Brands and Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. And on the first hole, well, let's talk about a season finale that just happened. The TGL season finale.
Correct.
Atlanta defeats New York. Man, that really has a ring to it. Because I can't say that often.
Drew, I remember when these teams first came out, and you said you were rolling with Atlanta. So you have a SoFi championship. Let's go.
Let's go, baby. Atlanta defeats New York. Just let it sink in, everybody. Maybe that's something we'll get used to hearing. Or, Major League Baseball official opening day this week. Maybe we'll hear Atlanta defeats Los Angeles in the NLCS this year. A lot of pundits putting our two teams against each other for a trip to the World Series. What say you real quick on baseball before we get into our...
Yeah, I'm a Cardinal fan. One of the greatest sports organization of all time.
Just lost Paul Goldschmidt to the Yankees, so...
Yeah, no, listen. But we kept Arenado. We got some pitching. Listen, every baseball fan will tell you the best organization is the Cardinals. But with that said, we have 11 World Championships.
I think the Yankees got a few more than that. 27?
And you know who's second?
The Dodgers?
Nope.
Cardinals. Okay. Anyway, back to golf. TGL, Atlanta beats New York. That's the third time I've said it. It may not be the last time I've said it. I got to admit, we were on opposite sides of the fence here. I was all in. I was watching every shot, every hole, every match. And I am ADHD. And in my life, I try to develop routines. The more I can have frequency in something, the better I am. Whether it comes to diet, workout, even my viewing habits. And in this case, Valentine's week, when they had Tiger's event, the Genesis at Torrey Pines, there was no TGL because Tiger and the people that ran the league had a pretty good idea. Most of the guys were going to be on the opposite side of the continent that week, so they didn't schedule anything. And for me, once you disrupt a viewing pattern that's only 4 or 5 weeks old, I never got back on the horse. I did watch a couple of matches, maybe at their conclusion, just on nights as I'm doing laundry or something, chasing the kids around. We got spring sports that have started, which takes precedent, obviously, over any type of viewing patterns. So just getting into my kids' sports and missing that second week of February, I was off the bandwagon and I never got back on. And to be quite honest, I didn't see a shot from the championship matches.
Yeah,
I've read the recaps and I know that Atlanta won, but I actually didn't view it and I didn't feel like I missed anything. So maybe they got to do a little something. If they're going to lose me, then maybe they got to do something that's a little bit more engaging with the rhythm of the thing, with the patterns, and maybe just with the scheduling.
Yeah, I didn't watch. I was on the golf course and then went to dinner last night, so I didn't watch most of it. I saw the highlights and Horschel going crazy. But I think, and my biggest problem is now we take 9 months off and it's very forgetful. We're getting into major season, which we'll talk about later in this show. And it just feels like I'm gonna forget that Atlanta won. Like, if you weren't a Georgia resident, you'd probably forget that Atlanta won the first one. I know there's some talk about a SoFi Center here on the West Coast, but yeah, after the Tiger Rory match, it felt like baseball, honestly, and it felt like perfect background sports to have on while you do other stuff in the house. And every once in a while, you catch a shot into a simulator or see Tom Kim or Tiger or Rory or Adam Scott. Oh, that's cool. But I think following it week to week and who's on, who's playing, schedule wise, it's just a lot to follow. And it's not, I think, very different crowds watching this than watching the Valspar or Arnold Palmer. And for me, I know that's what I know. That's what I'm going to watch. I'm not going to say it's been dead. I've been a critic on this show. It's recorded. I've looked in this camera and say I'm not going to watch it. They can still get me. I'm open to it, but they got to make some changes. And maybe don't take 9 months off. I don't know.
Yeah, I love the fact that my city gets to celebrate a championship for 9 months, but honestly, it's kind of And as far as the scheduling and the sequencing, I felt like it was great the first couple of holes you had. I think we had three different waves of singles, so you had
Yeah.
9 hole or the triples. The triples would
Yeah.
go. The alternate shot stuff would go pretty quick, and then we would have a halftime break. And I always felt like the show lost momentum there. And I almost wonder if we could have two matches at one time, one group over at the short game area, one group on the simulator, and we're kind of crossing again in real golf television. We're showing effectively 36 different shots at any given time theoretically. So why can't
Can we follow that much golf on the screen?
Gosh, I think we could. And I also, speaking of the screen, they have the big matrix boards within the arena, kind of showing
Yeah.
it's almost like a
Yeah.
data profile of the hole. I wish that was superimposed on the screen like they do in the live broadcast. They can take a little bit from the live broadcast where they give an overview of the hole and
Yeah.
maybe even the target, just show a little dot where the guy's actually trying to aim. And one more thing about the technology, a lot of those guys were trying to hit fades into those par three greens. I watched the first few and I was like, why is everybody missing it left on par threes? It's because they're trying to fade it. They start the ball left, and in real life, it continues to work left to right. Well, when it hits that screen, it may hit that screen and affect the spin of the ball. And it gets a false reading effectively, sending the ball to the left side of the green. It never allows it its natural curve, which we have in real life. And I
Yeah.
think some of the guys started to figure that out, but there's some things like that that hopefully in the 9 months, in this long break that we have, that we'll be able to correct some of those things. But again, I wouldn't mind having a couple matches going at one time. Maybe we expand the league a couple more teams,
Yeah.
and that gives us, that gives us 12 guys to watch on a Monday
Yeah.
night or a
Yeah.
Tuesday night
And
instead of just six. And I felt like after the initial excitement of the first two matches, especially with Tiger making an appearance, Rory making an appearance, I felt like it was a little bit stale. Definitely some new personalities can come in and maybe spice that up. But I think there's some changes that need to be made. I will tune in for season two simply because it's January. And if you're not watching football, you're really not watching anything. For me, I've fallen out of love with basketball. So January for me, there's not a lot going on. So TGL is going to pull me in again next year.
Georgia's season will be over by then anyway. So
Usually that is the case. We've been very fortunate here the last few years, but usually we're done. January 1st is the latest we'll ever play a football game. So that's something we're actually trending back into reality after playing a few games on January 9th and 10th. All right, hole number two. Nice little subtle dig at my Bulldogs there, Scotty. That was clever. Florida swing
yeah.
on the PGA Tour. The winners were Highsmith, Henley, Carl Phillips, Rory McIlroy, and Victor Hovland, who beat JT at the wire on Sunday at the Valspar. Do any of those names surprise you more than the others, or were you expecting to see those names on the Florida swing as winners?
I'm happy for Highsmith. Obviously, it's cool that, it's LaCava's son on the bag. They were paired together the first couple rounds. So really cool there. Obviously, if I was a betting man, I would have told you going into Sunday at API that Colin Morikawa closes it out. And, listen, he made a great, and he even talked about it on Smiley's podcast. He hit the 5-iron of his life on 14, made birdie there, and then chips in, on 16. And it's not like Colin played bad at all. He just got blitzed by a couple things down the stretch, and but Henley is a dog, and he is a Georgia dog, and so giving back some love there for our viewers. And so he's ascended to where he is. I think he's somewhere top 15 in the world now. I think he's 5th on the Ryder Cup points. So that one was maybe surprising that he took down Colin, but he's there, and obviously Rory, what he did at the Players, doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, I know both of us were cheering for JJ Spaun because we know Mark Cairns, friend of the show. He keeps promising us he's going to get a win. He's going to come on the show. And boy, I thought we were really close there at the Players. And I think we were probably officially about a half inch away at the Players on Sunday night, that final putt. So I was in a hotel room on my knees cheering for that thing to drop.
Yeah, we were both texting him throughout the week. I tried to keep my distance because obviously I'm sure he got a million text message, but he sent a really nice text back, Monday afternoon, kind of after everything happened, and just said he appreciated us rooting for him. And, we'll get him on the show to talk about a lot of stuff soon.
Well, and that second place finish vaulted them up to mid-20s in the world ranking. So they officially are in the Masters, which wasn't the case before that performance at the Players. So I'm excited to see a guy that is a ball striker and a guy, they've been there before. The last time they went there, it was on the right behind a win at Valero. And they went straight from San Antonio to Augusta. Bit of a whirlwind this year. This year they have a month to prepare for their trip. And I think they'll be a little bit better prepared this time around. And I look for JJ and Mark to continue their good form, not only in Texas, but at Augusta in a couple of weeks.
JJ Spaun.
There we go.
Huge Dodger fan.
SoCal cool, JJ is. And he showed that in the playoff. And even after the playoff, doing an interview with Smiley, and give him a lot of credit for that because there was a lot of press the week before for somebody not doing an interview as a runner-up. So it's not always easy in that moment. You need a little bit of cool down period, and JJ handled it very well. So very professionally, and another reason to root for my friend Mark Cairns and his boss, JJ Spaun. All right, Texas two-step this week. PGA Tours in Houston. And then this is the cutoff week for the world ranking top 50 to get your Masters exemption. And then next week, one more chance for a Masters invite, the winner of the Valero Texas Open. What are we thinking of the Texas two-step?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think early in the week, Tony Finau came out and said that Houston was the best prep for Augusta. I know famously Phil used to always like to play, the week before or 2 weeks before down in Texas. And I think a lot of guys that have not necessarily always wanted to play Houston or Valero kind of used it now as a Masters prep. So yeah, no, I'm interested to see who plays well. I'm interested to see if anybody makes a big move into that world ranking. I don't know exactly where guys are on the height of that cutoff, so I don't necessarily know any names, but you're going to have people that fall in and fall out after this week, and people will be punching the ticket to the hardest place to get to in golf, and that's Augusta National.
Well, one big name that everybody knows, Ricky Fowler, he's in a position this week in Houston where it's win or you don't play in the Masters. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on this week. Ricky can finish second and he won't get into Augusta. So he'll be very aggressive probably from the start, and that could pay off, and it could put him in the hunt this weekend. And I know, again, I don't know why. I know he's a wonderful guy. He's always been good to me, but people just love rooting for Ricky Fowler.
Yeah.
And so getting him in a major at a time where the game is a bit divided, I don't think would hurt ratings whatsoever.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm a Ricky fan, always have been. Something about him, he's just, again, California kid, likable, seems to be relatable. He always will give you the time of day, is honest with you, and tells you how he feels. So yeah, golf's better with Ricky in play. So,
all right, hole number 4 in our first 9. Let's do a bit of a Masters preview. We're going to do a full Masters preview show.
Okay.
on the eve of the tournament, but we are 2 weeks away
Yep.
and we're less than 2 weeks away from practice round starting. Already getting weather forecast and whatnot. They're actually saying there's going to be a little bit of rain in the forecast. It's been a little bit dry here. We've had a few storms come through Georgia, but they've been really thin, really fast moving. A couple of tornadoes that you may have read about in the greater
Yep.
media. But really quick moving storms. There hasn't been any 3-4 day deluges. It's very firm on all the turf in Georgia right now. I would imagine it's the same case in Augusta. So very firm. So that rain actually probably won't have the impact at Augusta that it may have elsewhere. So we still might have a firm, slick golf course and even some hydroplaning balls that first hop on the green. And then I think it's supposed to be pretty nice over the weekend. So that's kind of the extended weather report. And again, we'll get a little bit more specific on that as we get closer to the tournament. I want you to give me a favorite or two, a dark horse or two, and which player or players are you fading for the tournament? We'll start with our favorites, and I'll give the floor to you.
Yeah, I respect my elders and my giving more love back to Georgia. So I'll let you go first.
Well, I mean, I think there's three guys right now that there's going to be a lot of attention put on, and rightfully so. We're going to have the defending champion Scotty Scheffler. You're going to have Rory McIlroy going for the Grand Slam, and then Joaquin Niemann is probably in the best form out of all the guys coming over from the live circuit to play the season's first major. Even Phil saying he's the best player in the world right now. So those, and that's debatable. We could have a debate on that if we wanted, but Scotty, Rory, and Joaquin, I think, are going to be the three guys getting the most attention the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, no doubt. When you said the favorite, the immediate person that came to mind is just the way that he's playing, the way he's finishing off golf tournaments and winning at iconic venues. You know, one at TPC Sawgrass recently, one at Pebble Beach. I think my pick right now is Rory McIlroy. He just seems to be in the best form of those guys we mentioned. Obviously, it's really hard to pick against Scotty Scheffler at that place and Ted Scott at that place. But right now, it just seems like Teddy and Scotty aren't making the putts, and Rory's finding a way just to survive on leaderboards, and then finding a way on Sunday to get at the top of that leaderboard. So right now, if I had money and I had to pick a favorite, I'm going with the Northern Irishman, Rory McIlroy.
Well, and we've discussed this on this show. If people want to go back and watch the episode, I think it was after his Pebble Beach win. Rory said that the top three cathedrals in the game, Pebble Beach, Augusta National, and St. Andrews, the Pebble Beach win earlier this year was his first win on any of those three. So I thought maybe could be a sign of things to come. Wins the Players, and I believe if he wins the Masters, would only be the third player to ever win the Players and the Masters in the same year. The first two, of course, being Tiger Woods and last year Scotty Scheffler.
I think that's right. I'm not going to say that you're not right, but I do think that is correct. So
Don't worry. Everybody in my house tells me I'm not right all day long. Wouldn't hurt
see,
my feelings a
that's
bit.
why you do a show with me, man, to tell you how astute you are, smart you are, and how much research and how great you sound on on the listeners right now.
You fill my head full of helium, and then I hit the stop recording button, and I return to reality very
Yeah,
quickly.
exactly. Well, that's why I do it, because I know what you go back to.
All right, dark horses for the Masters. You first.
I'm going Nick Taylor.
Okay.
I know the play's not great and it's been up and down, but he's got some huge wins, and anytime he's had to make the putt or beat a guy in a playoff, he's done it. And so if I think that guy's down the stretch on those holes, who would I want putting to make a putt out there? Hard to think I would want someone not named Nick Taylor coming down the stretch.
Good pick. I've got three dark horses, one with a
Okay.
question mark. I'm not sure a former champ can be a dark horse, but we're going to celebrate the 10th anniversary of his victory this year, and it's Jordan Spieth. Can Jordan, and he's right around top 50 in world ranking. I mean, I think that qualifies as dark horse. It's been a decade since he was the champ. So he's kind of a question mark dark horse for me. And then Akshay I really, again,
Okay.
I love lefties around Augusta.
Mhm.
I love lefties that, again, the right to left shot is really good for lefties.
Yep.
They can kind of control that a little more, and when they need to turn one over, just like in baseball, lefties don't have a problem pulling the ball. Lefties don't have a problem hitting the draw when they need to, but the big tee shots, like 5, like 10, those are right to left tee shots, and lefties can just aim at the right rough and hit that nice fade that's going to control itself on the ground. So that's always good at Augusta. We've got Mike Weir. We've got Bubba Watson. Who's the other lefty champ that we have? Oh, yeah, Phil Mickelson 3 times.
Yeah.
So I like Akshay as a
I
dark
like it.
horse.
I like it. It's playing good.
And another dark horse I have, again, if it's going to be as firm as I think it is out there, it's all about controlling your second shot. Jack Nicklaus famous for saying it's a second shot golf course. I don't really know when he's on if there's a better second shot player than Austin Eckroat. I really
Ooh,
like
okay.
Eckroat this year. He won last year at the Cognizant, maybe enjoyed it, and didn't quite maybe get ready for the majors or maybe wasn't ready for the majors. This is his second go round at the highest level. And I think he's better prepared along with Stone Coburn, his caddy, who's a very good caddy, great for Austin. I think they're going to have a big week.
Okay. Let me give you one more dark horse, and someone that I think is playing good golf and not getting a lot of love because he plays on the other tour. Sergio Garcia.
Again, another former champ,
Yeah.
2017 champ, recently loves Augusta. Had
Yeah.
a pretty big fight with Augusta for about 20 years of his career. In the last 8 or 9, he's really enjoyed it so much so in naming one of his children after the par
Azalea.
5, 13th hole Azalea. So I like that pick. Okay. Who are we fading?
This
I've got
hurts.
I've got
This
one live guy and one PGA guy. You first.
this hurts. I'm fading another former champ, Dustin Johnson.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. He's had I think maybe one good round
Yeah.
in a dozen so
Yeah.
far this year. But turning down Magnolia Lane does something for those former champs.
I agree. I agree. That's a big
And
dinner. That's a big dinner they get to go to on Tuesday night. That
South Carolina boy gets fired up driving down that road.
I understand. And then one more guy I'm fading, and this would just be for this week. Um, he's just not making putts right now. Scotty Scheffler. Yeah,
He's won 2 of the last 3 of those tournaments. Just
I agree. He hasn't won this year.
wow, that's an incredible fade. All right, I'm fading.
Listen, you want bold? You want me to go on a limb? You
I
want me
mean,
to?
that's an
You
incredible
want me to
fade.
say Xander Schauffele? Like how? Like who cares about that pick?
I mean, he's the odds-on favorite. He's the number 1 ranked player in the world, and he's the defending champ. And you're fading him. Bold play. I like it. Bold strategy, Cotton.
Hey,
All right.
listen, you don't have me on this show to
Definitely don't have you on the show because we agree on everything. That's for darn sure.
wasn't going to say
Um,
that, but okay.
so my 2 fades, very obvious fades. Matt Fitzpatrick just split up with caddy Billy Foster after missing the cut at the Players. Just games out of sorts right now. Don't see him playing great. And then Cam Smith, just the article came out last week. Somebody said he's a shadow of his former self, and I don't know how he fixes that. Maybe getting the bell rung at Augusta does it for him, and he wakes up and comes to Quail Hollow a renewed man. But I think right now, based on his form, I don't see him playing well. And again, he's the only player in Masters history to shoot 4 rounds in the 60s, and he didn't win that year. So he holds a very kind of almost a dubious record of being the only guy to do it, and you didn't even get a green jacket doing that. So you got to think, if you're Cam, well, what do I got to do to win one of these? Maybe it's just not for me. And don't know how he's going to feel pulling down Magnolia Lane, watching those slick, fast surfaces this year
True.
after not playing so good.
On those fadas, I want to go to the first one. I know you know the golf course better than anybody that I personally know, and Fitzpatrick needs a caddy at Augusta. Are you going to be wearing a white jumpsuit this year?
Not for Fitzpatrick. And I tell you why. I would take the job in a heartbeat because I really like Matt. I think the way he looks at a golf course, very analytical, very numbers based. That actually fits with my style of caddying. I'm very numbers oriented. I use the stats to inform me as to what we need to be doing, being risk averse or being aggressive. So Matt and I think our minds would work great, but it's a Ryder Cup year, and there isn't a chance in the world a European Ryder Cupper's calling a yank to work for him at any point in the year, but especially for a major championship. I promise you that.
Wow.
And again, my personal thought.
Hold on, just because this is cool insight that not everyone gets. Is that a thing that a European player would consider in hiring their caddy?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Adam Hayes is an American, works for John Rahm, been in a team room for a couple of years now to Ryder Cup. I think they want to kind of keep that at a minimum. And I think Adam and John have almost, it's almost one of those, hey, I don't know if Adam's had to sign NDAs, but I guarantee you they don't want to see Adam and John split up in any amount of time in the recent future. And then Adam end up with an American Ryder Cupper giving proprietary information to the American team about how the Europeans do things.
Okay.
And there's a lot of American players and caddies who have an idea of how things are done in the Euro team room, but nobody knows definitively that's working for an American player. And I think they want to keep that at bay. Not to say that I'm in line for an American player's to be an American player's caddy at any point in the future, but that would be definitely a consideration. And again, when I heard about Billy and Matt splitting up, my first thought is 4 years ago, before Bones left to go work for Justin Thomas, I personally thought the only player that could bring him out of retirement was Matt Fitzpatrick, who Bones worked for in fill-in duty for Billy Foster at the Memorial a few years ago. And Bones just thinks the world of Matt. And I know Matt thinks the world of Bones. And it even carries over to Matt's little brother, Alex. Both Bones and I have had a lot of interactions with him working with NBC, working the Walker Cup at Seminole. We had Alex's match, I think all 4 sessions or 4 of the 5 sessions, something like that. We were around him a lot. Great kid. Really enjoyed being around him. Bones and I brought the last match in at the Ryder Cup at Whistling Straits, which was Fitzpatrick versus Daniel Berger. So again, I thought Bones would be a good fit. But again, as an American and being a guy that's worked over 20 years against the Europeans, there's no chance they're bringing Bones into that team room. And also, I will tell you that Bones has told me that his caddying days are behind him. I think it's a bit unfortunate because I know there's a lot of young players that can benefit from Bones' experience. But I think the soiree with JT, they won a major championship. That was the icing on the cake for Bones. And he's going to call TV and live that schedule the rest of his life. And the worst thing in the world for Bones, if you ask him about doing the TV job, is he has to wear slacks every day at work. That's the worst thing for Bones. Everything else is gravy. So that was my thought on the Fitzpatrick deal. Was it was going to be
incredible insight for our listeners there. I think that's good insight there, because that's not something I know, and like I don't know if the ladies for Solheim consider that.
Well, again, you're probably going to be in the team room, so you might have to sign an NDA later this year. And when you do, I hope you bring that information to the show. And we're going to get to your 1:34 Pacific Tee Time at the end of the show today. All right, so now we go to the ANWA preview, which has turned into Masters Week for 80 years. 80-something years was maybe Sunday afternoon. Guys started arriving. The media started reporting on maybe some late afternoon practice rounds. And then, of course, the conclusion of play 7.5 days later on Sunday night. Now the ANWA, it's almost 2 full weeks of Masters live coverage. And then you get to see the golf course, the top 30 ladies on the leaderboard. You get to see them play on Saturday. Then you have drive, chip, and putt on Sunday. So for me, the ANWA just makes Masters Week longer on the front end, which is awesome. And I love it. And I'm getting fired up about it.
Yeah, no doubt. It's the coolest thing, I think. I think I almost like watching. It feels like it starts Master Week when we see these ladies play Augusta Nationals. Now, I will tell you, as my boss, someone that played at 4 ANWAs, she will tell you that Champions Retreat is a much harder golf course where they have to play first versus playing at Augusta. And it could just be for her game, but she feels like Champions Retreat is much harder than in getting around Augusta National. So I'm excited about it. I took a cart ride and talked with James O today, who is teaching Jasmine Koo, and he's fired up about it. And one of the things he was mentioning is it's the only time they allow coaches inside the ropes for practice rounds, because once the Masters start, it's just player and caddy that can go inside the ropes. So he was stoked because he was like, unless I'm playing, this is the only time I'm ever going to get inside the ropes, because they allow coaches inside the ropes at ANWA. So just some cool insight there. And he's saying that, Jasmine's already, using TrackMan and thinking about some of the different shots that she's going to have to hit, some of the draws, some of the fadey iron shots into some of the holes at Augusta National. So that was kind of cool to hear this morning.
Well, I know both courses. I've actually caddied on both courses multiple times, and Champions Retreat, the reason it's probably more difficult is simply because it's dormant Bermuda rough, but it's up. So you could get a very thin flyer lie, you could get a very heavy dead lie. And it may not be as easy to predict as when the Bermuda is in season in the summer. And then you have some very slick greens, a lot of elevation change at Champions Retreat, couple of strategic par fours. There's one hole you kind of hit it out to the left. The green's on the right, on the side of a hill. There's a creek separating the green and the fairway. Creek's a little bit hidden from view. So a little bit of trickery there. And again, I think it's more exposed to the wind because it's right on the Savannah River. So if it's a windy day there, you're going to feel it way more than you will at Augusta, which is more inland and kind of down a little bit on two slopes. So the wind can sometimes go over your head at Augusta. Doesn't affect every shot. You got a couple of holes at the ANWA Champions Retreat that are on the Savannah River and can get really hammered by the wind. Even one par 3 that's straight downwind coming off the water, so that can make it very hard to hold that green. And then when they get to Augusta, they're dealing with a course that obviously is getting ready to host the Masters. It's all overseed rye. It's all the same grass, fairways and first cut, as they call it at Augusta. But it's all pretty consistent. And so you can judge your lies off the fairway much easier at Augusta. And at Champions Retreat, there isn't quite the escapability. There's maybe thicker trees down some holes. So if you miss, say on like 7 at Augusta, you can kind of play it to the front bunkers, get up and down. Or if you miss at 17, kind of the same thing. You can play for something up around the green, hit a shot, chase it up the fairway. At Champions Retreat, those opportunities don't always exist. So you may have to play out sideways more often. So yeah, stroke average always going to be higher at Champions Retreat, and they play 2 of the 3 rounds there. Right. So again, they're playing 66% of the rounds at a harder golf course, and then they come and play at Augusta. But let's talk about some of the players. You talked about Jasmine Koo, highest ranked American, number 2 in the world. Yep. Also, I guess these days it's an awesome title to have. If you're the highest ranked USC Trojan, you're really good.
Yes, indeed.
Because you've got Jasmine Koo at number 2. You got Catherine Park at number 5 in the world, also a USC Trojan. I think Catherine Park, correct me if I'm wrong, you know these USC golfers a lot better than I do. Is Catherine Park the longest female amateur in the world?
I don't know her well. Our paths have crossed at Rolling Hills or USC's a couple times. I believe that's correct. I'm not going to say that because I don't know, where all these AMs hit it. They all hit it far, I can tell you that. I mean, but yeah, she definitely is a big hit. I mean, Jasmine Koo hits it far. Lottie Woad hits it far.
Lottie Woad, defending champion, number 1 amateur in the world. Let's talk about her a little bit. From England, Florida State golfer. Yep. Great win last year. We actually have 3 of the 5 past champions in the field this week. Yeah. The only 2 that aren't in the field are playing with you this week, Rose Zhang and Jennifer Kupcho.
Yeah.
We have Tsubasa Kajitani from Japan, your 2021 champ. It took me a while to learn how to say that name. And then, of course, we have Anna Davis, the 2022 champ, the lefty. She's also in the field. So 3 of the past champions. This is our 6th Augusta National Women's Amateur. We're almost at 10 years old in this thing, which is kind of cool. So 3 of the 5 champs, Lottie Woad being the defending champ and trying to be the first back-to-back winner at the Augusta National Women's Amateur. We've only had 3 back-to-back winners at the Masters. We've had Jack Nicklaus, Nick Faldo, and Tiger Woods in that order. Lottie Woad trying to add her name to that list.
That would be incredible. Yeah. Who's your pick, Drew?
Well, I've gone through and looked at a lot of this. Uh, Actually, my pick being connected with Bianca Pagdananan from the Philippines.
Yep.
The number 4 amateur in the world is Rian Maliksi. I think that's how you say it, Rian Maliksi from the Philippines. So I'm going to go with a Philippine to be the first Filipino to win the Augusta National Women's Amateur. I think that would be a cool thing to see. And the other thing, just because I'm a little sadistic, and if I'm not calling the event, I want the other broadcasters to really work for their pesos. I'm hoping Catania Fernandez Garcia Pollo contends,
Yeah.
just so they have to say that name over and over again. I am such a jerk, aren't I?
You're such a jerk. But I love that, and I love the fact that you've put in so much time into these pronunciations for this podcast. If it is not my girl Jasmine Koo, because lovely girls practice out at public golf course, obviously rooting for the hometown USC girl. But if not, I'm going to go up a little bit north, up into Oregon, and take my girl Kiera Romero, who has been playing some great golf. Derek up there is a great coach. He was the famous coach for Bianca and that Arizona team that won the national champion. Gigi Stoll, the Shoe Sisters. I mean, what a recruiting job that he put on at Arizona. Now he's building something special up at Oregon. Derek Radley. So I'm taking either staying out west, I know, but either Kiera Romero or Jasmine Koo as your ANWA champion.
Well, Jasmine Koo won the East Lake Cup, and I was there working for television. And a couple of matches went to extra holes, and I got assigned those matches. And one of them was one of the Oregon players, and I got to stand next to Coach D, as everybody calls him, Derek, and listen to him caddy in a playoff with some players. And I tell you, if my little girl shows an aptitude for golf in the next few years and wants to and gets good enough to go play at college, I'm giving Derek a call. I thought he was fantastic as a caddy. He's doing a great job as a coach. Just getting to the East Lake Cup tells you the coach is doing a good job. But watching him perform under pressure, really a lot of fun listening to him. And I would enjoy as a player hearing him kind of walk me through a shot. And that's the highest form of respect I can give a guy. So really enjoyed watching Coach D do his thing at the East Lake Cup last year, where your girl Jasmine Koo got the individual title. So she's already won one title in Georgia. Why not win another one straight down I-20?
I mean, just call her Bobby Jones.
Let's go. If you win at East Lake and you win at Augusta, you're doing pretty good in golf. All right. Hole number 6. Making golf great again.
Here we go.
Tiger and Trump. Let's go, baby.
How about this?
Hard launch on social media of a Trump and a Tiger coming together. All is right in the world, isn't it, Scott?
I mean, who took those pictures, Tiger? That's what I want to know. Who took
It had to be
pictures?
one of the daughters, either Sam.
I mean, no, hold on. How about the hammock picture? He just looks like he's just staring at this man.
Okay, it's okay. Hey, it's okay. He's just chilling in his backyard. Yeah, I would think one of the children. I would probably lean towards one of the daughters, since the daughters tend to have a little bit more savvy in social media. And Charlie was up here near Georgia in Sage Valley playing the Junior Invitational last weekend. So it may have been Samantha Woods taking those photos, or a professional photographer. I know both of those people have access to such professionals.
I mean, I'm not surprised by this, Tiger. We heard the rumors. We saw Kai at Torrey Pines for his tournament come out wearing Sunday red. So listen, as long as Tiger's happy, then I'm rooting for Tiger.
I mean, we got Carl Phillips signing with Sunday Red, winning an event just 2-3 weeks after that announcement. We got this announcement. I mean, golly, we got Trump in office at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I mean, it is turning into a good year, isn't it?
Oh boy, no, it's definitely not been good. The only thing I would say is how those price of eggs are doing and how those tariffs are treating you.
Golly.
But
I eat 4 eggs every morning, so I'm going into debt just to eat breakfast right now.
Correct. Yeah. Well,
Golly.
but I don't know. We might feel a little different on this West Coast, but at least we got Gavin, so I'll say
All
that.
right. First Nine, sponsored by Birdie Brands and Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. Hole number 7, you and I had a pretty lively debate over text the last couple of nights about
Oh yeah.
the turning pro debate. Some of these amateurs, like a Luke Clanton, we've got Gordon Sargent, who's a little bit out of the headlines right now, but he earned a PGA Tour card last year. He's still playing college golf at Vanderbilt. Said he wanted to forego turning pro, get an education at Vanderbilt, which anybody who knows anything about Vanderbilt knows that is of value. And then we've got guys like Jackson Coyven, who's now 1 point away from securing his card, most likely because of his ability and because of his team as well. Like if he wins a national championship, which is a team thing, he gets that additional point. Probably get a PGA start or two the rest of this year, and can make a cut and solidify his PGA Tour status. And you and I have a little bit of a debate on what should happen with these guys. NIL is changing this conversation. It used to be, yeah, golly, there's millions of dollars at stake. You got to go get it. Stop being a broke college kid. But these kids aren't broke college kids. They're not like I was in the mid
Yeah.
1990s going to play baseball, getting a speeding ticket, and not able to get a job because you signed documents with the NCAA clearinghouse. Those things are gone. You can
Right.
make as much money as you
As
can
long as you're an American citizen.
as long as you're an American citizen. And all of these kids I spoke about are.
Yeah.
So these kids, and again, they're making high 6 figures, maybe even some approaching 7 figures to play college golf. That being said, what's your advice if one of these kids calls you and says, "What should I do?"
Well, I think everyone makes the decision for themselves. And we were talking about Jackson Coyven, right? Who is probably the most talented of those names that we were chatting about. And if someone you had to bet on the future, you'd probably bet the money on him, right?
Hmm.
So, and that's debatable, but let's just say for the sake of argument there, I think someone like him would benefit of going and playing tour golf, traveling, learning golf courses, learning the people out there as soon as possible. Because I think the learning curve of is still hard. Now it's not what it used to be. And yes, NIL from a financial standpoint, yeah, I mean these kids can make upwards of $3 million to stay in school. And it definitely has changed the conversation. But I think if you want to be the guy and you want to be the world beater and you want to go chase what Tiger did or what Ryan Moore did when they turned pro, what Phil Mickelson did when he turned pro, what Luke Clanton's going to do, what Nick Dunlap's going to do, then I think there is nothing like going up against the very best in the world every week. And as soon as you can make that a normal thing and have some normalcy to tour life, I think that's a good thing. Now, listen, I work for someone that was number one amateur in the world and stayed in college for 5 years. And I think it was the best decision for her because her college coaches, and even she would tell you that she got better every year and more ready every year. And I think it's how she's become. I've seen it. I've seen the transition in her just from year to year. But again, everyone I think makes their own decision of when they're ready, and these kids may not be ready. That's a tough thing for a kid to know, but you don't know until you turn it on and you say, "I'm here." So, in the case of the individual we were chatting about, I think he would be better off going and playing tour golf as soon as possible. But maybe that's not his personality, and maybe that's not what he wants to do, and that's a decision that him and his team will make.
So my personal experience with some of these PGA Tour U guys, I interviewed and did not get the Fred Biondi job, who was the NCAA champ a couple of years ago. I did end up working for a brief period of time last summer for excuse me, Austin Greaser. Biondi came out as the number 2 ranked guy in PGA Tour University. Greaser was number 3 last year. Both guys full Corn Ferry status. Both guys, obviously not the number 1 player behind Ludwig Aubert and Michael Thorbjorsen, who it's kind of become clear the gap between 1 and 2 is pretty wide in that standing this year. This year, I think there's a little bit more competitiveness between David Ford,
Yeah.
Brendan Valdez, other guys that are in the mix there. But the guys that I've worked for that had the Corn Ferry status, they're still improving in their games. There's still holes in their games that they're now trying to fix at a professional level against the best. So there's some cautionary tales for the young guys saying, yes, I am only a sophomore or a junior in college. Man, I could really tighten the screws in a very safe environment, and everybody handles the team aspect of college golf differently. I also worked for a guy named William Mao, who I think struggled with the team concept, is flourishing as an individual, got his PGA card last year, doing okay on the PGA Tour. I think he would tell you he could probably improve in some areas and get a little better in a short period of time. But everybody handles that team element differently too. So maybe they like being part of the team, and maybe for a Gordon Sargent or a Luke Clanton, guys like that, both these guys are very close with their college coaches, as is Jackson Coyven. So maybe having that kind of guidance for another year of your life, instead of cutting that umbilical cord and being untethered, and now you're out on your own, you're a CEO at 19, 20 years old.
You can't teach that.
And it can be a scary thing. And I've actually spoken to Jackson's parents, and they said he's going back to school for 2026. Again, this was long before he was on the cusp of earning a PGA card. I'm sure different conversations can and will be had the remainder of this year. But everybody handles that situation differently. And as a 46-year-old who was a student athlete in college for better part of a year and would give anything to go back and play 3 more years, just do it now. Do it where your peers are there. Get as many credits as you can now while you're in the habit of going to class. Because no matter what you say, once you head to the show, especially when you have a green light to the show, it's really hard to do that summer class or that night class. I mean, I think Rose Zhang is doing that at Stanford. I heard that recently. That blew my mind because I know how hard it is early on in your professional career to manage everything. And not only is she doing college classes, she's doing Stanford classes while she's trying to play on tour. So loads of respect to Rose for taking that on at this very busy time of her life. And my advice to the kids is, if you can manage it, and NIL allows for this, stay in school as long as you can. If you're getting paid and you're maybe paying your parents' house note off, that's awesome, because that also takes off a little bit of stress when you turn pro. If you turn pro and you have to borrow $250,000, which is roughly about what it costs to play a year of professional golf, there's an inherent pressure to perform. I want to pay these investors back, and I want to make some money. I don't just want to make that 250. I want to make 650 because I want to make 400 because I got to pay the tax man half of that, and I got to pay my investors back. So all those financial things.
Daddy's taking a physio's taking a piece, an agent's taking a piece. Yeah.
So all of that financial pressure, I feel like that's relieved as well. If I could make a high 6-figure deal my sophomore year and then bump that to 7 figures because I'm the number 1 amateur in the world, which is probably what Coyven will be when Clanton turns pro, man, that would take a lot of financial stress off of my plate, and performance anxiety issues would almost be non-existent from the financial perspective. And then your performance anxiety is only you proving it to yourself and others.
It's a valid point. Again, I think everyone has their own calculus, and people will make that calculus. I mean, look at a kid like, Akshay, right? That, didn't go to college, and kind of buddied the system and learned how to be a tour pro. And now, he's
still learning.
Yalimi No, right? Didn't go to college and, kind of struggled, lost her card, came back, had to make a crazy up and down in Q school 2 years ago to even be in the position. Now she's a tour winner. So again, everyone makes that decision for themselves.
Yeah, every path is different. And I will say that these kids are coming out. The Gordon Sargents, the Luke Clantons of the world, they are going to arrive on tour. I look at Gordon Sargent, I compare him to a Vandy product, Brandt Snedeker, who got to play in some major championships. Very talented guy, tour winner. And then you compare Luke Clanton to a Brooks Koepka. I guarantee you, Brooks and Brandt would tell you both those guys are so much better prepared for coming on tour than they were back when they were rookies, just because of the exposure they're already getting through NIL and through these PGA starts that they're getting because of the new PGA Tour University.
Well, look what where Brooks had to go play after college, right? He had to go play all around the world. You know,
Part of that was by choice because he felt like that would mature him, and I think it did. And it also gave him the perspective that he has, which I think is a very grounded perspective about golf. But again, I think both Luke Clanton and Gordon Sargent are going to hit the tour later this year better prepared than maybe some of their previous alumni from their schools. And I think the same thing's going to be said for all these guys moving forward. PGA Tour doing a good job of creating the pipeline to the
yes,
tour, almost NFL-esque
yeah,
instead of like college baseball. You know, golf used to resemble college baseball, where
mm,
people really didn't pay attention to college golf because the guys were going to spend 3-4 years in the minor leagues, and then they were going to take 2 or 3 years to even figure it out at the show. Same with college baseball. You know, I'm a Georgia Bulldog. We got a great baseball team, but I doubt any of the guys playing in Athens yesterday are going to be playing Major League Baseball in the next couple of years. There's a big gap in baseball, just like there was in golf. Golf is now trending closer to NFL, where we're sending our number one draft picks in golf straight to the league, like Cam Ward, like Shedeur Sanders. Those guys played college football very recently, and in the very not too distant future, they're going to be playing pro football for a whole lot of money, carrying a franchise. Same with these golfers. They're not only going to be playing pro golf, but the PGA Tour is going to ask these young guys to help carry the brand. Yeah, because we are, whether we like it or not, we're in a bit of a battle now. And it may have died down, or this week it may not be as contentious as last week, but they're still counting on these young guys to, because again, as we saw with Tiger's injury, he's all but gone
yeah,
from the everyday operations of the PGA Tour other than an administrative role. So we need a Luke Clanton. We need a
I
Gordon
agree.
Sargent to come out. And honestly, we need those guys to win majors early
Yeah,
and become the next great player. There's
yeah.
a lot of pressure on these guys from that perspective. And the tour would never outright tell these guys that. But I'm sure there's an expectation that at some point, PGA Tour U is going to create the American version of Ludwig Gobert.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
Okay. Good debate. I liked having that with you. I love when we don't agree on things because that makes the show better. If we did agree, it'd be kind of boring, wouldn't it? All
And
right. Eighth hole, the Ford Championship in Arizona. And this show is specifically going to focus on the 1:34 tee time, Pacific time, I will add, and with Ingrid Lindblad. And she's playing with Elizabeth Skokel. You got a former boss and a new boss.
yeah,
Boy, I love that little dynamic.
yeah, great dynamic. And we know who's on the bag for Sokol, right?
No.
Nick DeBello.
Hey, Spuddy!
Buddy.
Got a Spuddy reference in the show today. Atta, baby.
He'll be happy. He'll be happy. Not only that, he's staying right next to me in the same house. So,
Oh, good.
so yeah, no, it was. I think it's the third time I've been paired with DeBello. Listen, me and Elizabeth are great. When I saw her over at TOC, the first thing she asked was, "How are Irene's doing? How are the fires?" Like we are. I mean, I wouldn't say we're friends, but we are friendly, and a lot of respect there. And she was going through some injuries, and listen, that experience led me to a place where I'm in the place now, which wouldn't have happened. So all of those things kind of work out. But excited about the golf course, excited to tee it up again, and excited to make it to the first tee this week. I think there'll be no health issues. We're eating clean this week. We're not eating anything crazy, anything.
No sushi, no Caesar salads. Let's
Yeah,
just keep it turkey sandwiches, keep it down the middle.
exactly.
Let's put a peg in the ground,
So
right?
a lot of that. So it's a typical Arizona golf course. It's going to be quite firm, quite hot and firm first couple days. So I mean, there's not much to it. There's no rough out here. You can get to all the fives. So you might see a shootout, but also too, you can't play dangerous because of how firm it gets. Like you got to still pick smart shots, and getting the ball to stop is going to be really, really difficult this week, I think.
Can Ingrid flight it super high and stop it quicker?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. She can kind of especially with like some of her lower iron, she can hit kind of like the higher cutty shots versus like her normal kind of just straight kind of ball flight, which I would say is a little bit lower, but she can kind of hit a little grippy cut one that kind of spins a little bit more. So yeah.
But she's a powerful player, no?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we were hitting balls next to Amy Yang and Jan today, and Amy looks over and she goes, "Man, she hits it far." And I said, "Amy, we're just average, Amy." And she goes, "Okay, maybe I'm just old." I said, "Amy, I said, you're not old. You're the reigning KPMG champion. You're not
That's
old."
right. That's
So
right. Major champion last year with our man Jan Merling.
exactly. So no, it's fun. I'm excited to get going tomorrow. We've had some great prep. Her Swedish coach is out here this week, so yeah, it should be a good week.
All right. What's give me a winning score? What you got to shoot every day to have a sniff on Sunday?
Looked at the wind. Nothing's going to be crazy. Friday afternoon might be a little get gusty. Thank God we're not in that wave.
Mm.
I'm going to say winning score is 27 under.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. So you got to shoot 7 under a day to have a chance. 3.5 every 9 holes keeps you on pace with the lead.
Correct.
Okay.
There's just not enough trouble, I think, to make big numbers out here. And I mean, going through.
So here's my question. We totally disagree on this. I believe the men and the women should hit 4 different clubs into par threes, maybe not in the same day, but you should go in 4 different areas of the bag on a par 3. Is there maybe an opportunity down the road where you say to the field staff, hey, wouldn't mind seeing a 220 par 3 out here, maybe tip it out on that par 3 and bring scoring average back a little?
The way I feel is I work for the best iron player in the world. So no, I like hitting a lot of 9 irons and pitching wedges into greens.
Well, if she's the best iron player, why can't she hit a 5 iron better than anybody else into a green?
She can.
Okay, so why can't we make it 190? Why can't we play a 190 par 3? I'll give you a back center pin, but it's 190.
What's wrong with 100-yard and 130 and 150-yard par 3?
Because from my experience out there recently, that's all you're doing on 4s is hitting wedges and 9 irons. So the only opportunity to hit long irons for most players would be a par 3 or a second shot into a par 5. And some of those par 5s are so bottlenecked anyway, you're just laying up anyway.
We'll not be laying up on any of the 5s this week, I can tell you that.
So the par 3s, I'm maybe too old school, but I believe if you get all 14 clubs dirty and around, you've played a great golf course.
I don't necessarily think
and I feel like in the LPGA, there's a big gap between like your hybrid and your 7 iron, and those clubs look really new the whole season because you don't hit them a lot. That's just me. That's why I'm not on the LPGA anymore. Maybe I
think you and maybe the general public have a distorted view of how far the ladies hit the ball, but also more than that, how little they spin it. And so when you start having those bigger numbers, no one's going to be holding the green. And I don't think that necessarily asks plays the best shot. Like if we're all sitting there with a bag of balls and chipping behind the green because you can't hold a 4 iron or a 5 iron into a green, then I don't think that's a necessarily good hole.
But that's what guys do on long par 3s. Scotty Scheffler on the 4th hole last year, Sunday the Masters, hopped one over the back of the green and then left his next chip shot on the back edge, 2-putted for bogey. Still won the Masters, but he hopped one over a green. What's wrong with that?
I understand, but like how much? But who wants to watch people make bogeys to win? I want to watch someone take an 8 iron and stick it right next to the hole because
I think there's if 27 under is your prediction for a winning score, it is so easy to bring that winning score back to 17 or 16 under, just adding a little bit of length on 4 holes. That's it. I'm not asking to stretch the par 5s to 773 like we saw in Colorado last year on the Corn Ferry. Let's hit some 4 irons in the par 3s.
I don't think it's the par 3s, to be honest with you. I think it's par 4s are maybe too short and par 5s are too long. I don't necessarily think it's the 3s. Like I think because I don't think we hit more than 7 iron into a par 4 this week. Yeah.
And again, I think there should be, I know
I
on the
agree with you.
PGA
I
Tour,
think we should have to hit a 5 iron into a par 4, but
I
also
totally
too, we
agree.
should be able to hit a 5 iron into a par 5.
I agree.
So that I mean, we hit 5 hybrid straight downwind one day, and then we hit a 7 wood, and we hit a 4 wood. So like that's to me the discrepancy is like the 5s are too long and the 4s are too short.
Well, again, if 27 under is a winning score, that's fine. It's the best golfer that week on that golf course. But I wouldn't mind seeing, par be a little bit closer to respectable.
I
You
agree.
should need, if 27 under is the winning score, 7 under is going to be the cut.
Well, 5, 6, yeah. But I'll say this: last year, very easy golf course again, Arizona, desert golf course, not much rough. Nelly, in pouring down rain, won at 20 or 21. So, like, the best player still won.
Well, we'll revisit this because this is pretty strong debate that you and I have. And every time I get on a 245-yard par 3, I take a photo and I send it to you and I say, "See, here we go."
Just to me, that's too long. That doesn't. Par 3s, you should be hitting an iron.
Again, it's a par 3. It's not a par 2. It's a par 3. Should take 2 really good shots, tap you in for your par, and you move on.
We can't get into this thing where we just use length as the way to make golf course hard. I don't think that's the right way to go.
That's what the USGA does to produce a champion every year.
Well, they also grow
length and rough.
They also grow the rough in, and you can get tricky with pins and stuff like that. That I think separate good caddying and where to leave it and where to miss it versus just purely looking at the length of a hole.
You wouldn't possibly be thinking of that par 3 at Lancaster Country Club for a tricky pin, would you? That sloping green.
Predicted someone was going to chip it in the water, and what happened?
Number 1 player did that.
Correct.
Okay, final hole of our first 9 today. Hope you guys have stuck with us for this entire show. Sponsored by Birdie Brands and Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. Dave Pelz, 1939, 2025, passed away this weekend. Do you know what you did today in terms of your job, your vocation, that Dave Pelz influenced?
Well, she uses a Pel's putting drill on the putting green, so
That's one very big one. What's something else that you did today that Dave Pelz influenced? 1992 U.S. Open. Dave Pelz encouraged Tom Kite to use 4 wedges in his bag. Now every player carries 4 wedges. He called it his 3x4 system. You have 4 wedges. You have 3 different swings with each one. That Dave started that. Now every player, man and woman on tour in the world, has 4 wedges, and they have a full swing and off-speed swing. Yeah. And Dave started all that. Obviously, famously helped Phil Mickelson as well play a lot of good major championship golf.
I saw his tribute on Twitter. Which was cool. He said some really nice things for all of our listeners. If you go look at Phil's post, talked about how he owed a lot of it to him. Huge influence on his career. But I think when I think of Pel's, obviously the wedge setup, but I just think of everyone that uses the Pel's putting drill. I mean, any tour event, you'll see 20, 25 people using it. So
they're everywhere.
And it influenced all the putting mirrors and the short games that you see. All of that stuff is a remnants of what Pel's created.
Well, he worked at NASA for years in physics and kind of used that data, that analytical approach, brought it to golf. And Mark Brody is, of course, credited with the strokes gained statistic. Yeah. But it was really Dave Pelz's influence that brought Mark to expand his studies on that. And now strokes gained is what we all use to gauge all facets of our game. Tour players on the LPGA and PGA Tour have outlets where they can actually go and look, portals where they can look at their specific performance in certain areas to inform their practice. All that started with Dave Pelz. So may he rest in peace. He did truly transform the game that we love so much, and he still impacts us every day moving forward. So Dave Pelz, 1939, 2025, 85 years young. All right. Final thoughts from you before we let everybody go.
Yeah, just excited. It feels like we're now, like, I feel people are starting to talk about the Masters. People that are going are starting to post their tickets. I think they all just came last week. We're fired up about Anwa. It feels like golf season's here. LPGA, I think it's 18 of the top 20 in the world are playing this week. Because some play, some don't play next week at match play, and then we kind of get into the 4 in a row rotation. So I just feel like big time tour golf is here, and let's put away TGL and let's look at some people that actually do it on a real golf course. So
yeah, for me, pollen's in the air. Teams are flying north from Arizona and Florida, getting ready to start a major league season. Seems like golf is really kicking into gear this week and next week, and then of course Masters arrives, and it's Christmas in April for all of us golf nerds. So really excited. Scotty, thanks for making some time for us. 1:34 tomorrow Pacific time.
let's
You
go.
guys better get out there and make some birdies from what it sounds like from your prediction. So good luck. Wish you
Thanks.
the best. And we'll have a conversation with that flag on the 18th green next week.
That would be something, huh?
All right, guys. We're on all the social media channels. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube. Give us a like, give us a listen, and we'll keep giving you the world of golf from my side of the bag.
Birdie Brand's all-natural bug deterrent is the best in the game of golf. It keeps the bugs away while giving you a bit of focus for those tight moments as the match comes to a close. Tour tested, tour approved. The 1-ounce bottle fits in any golf bag or travel case. When the match is on the line, your focus and comfort are things you don't want to be thinking about. Use Birdie Brands to make sure that doesn't happen. Birdie Brands, game on, bugs gone. Get yours at birdiebrands.com today.
Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. This salsa got its start in a tiny kitchen in Alabama, but it's big on flavor at family gatherings, big or small. Make sure you have Uncle Keith's Rest in time for the Super Bowl. You can find Uncle Keith's at a grocery store in the southeastern United States, or if you're like me on the West Coast, you can go to UncleKeithSauce.com and order yours today. Call it red sauce, call it salsa, but when you have Uncle Keith's, you can definitely call it a party.